Amanda Wilkening, all 5-1 of her will serve. Down the middle, fielded back row by Cordell. Set up both, far side will go for Fritzler, blocked at the net by Amy Einspahr. Fritzler keeps it up. Eisenbart down the middle for Fritzler, poked over the net, popped up in the air by King. Akin tips it over. Near side, fielded by Eisenbart, tipped back over by Fritzler. Muller with a poem dig, popped up in the air by Wilkening. King will dump it over, fielded back row by Cordell. Set up Eisenbart down the middle, tipped over the net by Fritzler, kept up in the air by King. Akin to Einspahr, hits it hard, kill, Fleming wins the state championship.
The 2007 Fleming Wildcat volleyball team are featured on this edition of Championship Reflections. 10 years ago, the Fleming Wildcats won the first of what is now 5 volleyball championships, and that championship point was scored by my guest right now, Amy Einspahr, who was a part of that Fleming Wildcat team. Take me back to that. It's been 10 years since you guys won that first title. What were the emotions? What were the feelings when you finally saw that ball go down and you guys were finally crowned state champs?
You know, it was a little surreal because of what we had gone through the year prior, just being so close and not making it. To see it kind of come to fruition in the following season, we just were so headstrong and so determined. I don't think anybody on the team thought that we weren't going to win. And so when it finally went down, it was just such a, overwhelming amount of emotion and joy and relief that we finally got there. And we all did it together. The crew I was with was pretty amazing. So it was just kind of a wash of relief from the year prior.
It definitely was, and it was one of having got the opportunity to broadcast the 06 loss in 5 to Kit Carson and the win. One of, I believe, just 3 times I have ever broken down and cried on air because I'd seen all the hard work you guys went in. But it wasn't just that last year. You guys, the bunch that won that title, and then many of those same girls in 08, really committed for multiple years to build Fleming volleyball up to prominence.
Oh, absolutely. Derek Herbert was such an amazing coach, and he provided every opportunity for our team to grow and work so hard year after year to make it where we were and build such a legacy. And to end the season 32-0 after the prior was such an amazing thing to set, not only win state but also set that record. It was pretty fantastic.
You guys throughout the year, of course, 32-0, you never experienced losses, but it wasn't that you weren't pushed. Is there a moment that, 10 years removed from that season that kind of sticks out to you of, hey, that was the moment we realized we had to take it to another level?
I wouldn't say it's one moment in particular. I think that, well, actually I will. No, the day we lost, well, a year prior, I think all of us kind of got it in our heads that this is a terrible feeling, and we never want to experience not that again next year. And so I think that was the moment we all got in that we have one goal, and it's to get all the way to the championship again and win. And it speaks volumes, to Shelby Fritzler, who's a good friend of mine, but that game was pretty fast, to say the least. It didn't take very long just because we were so determined that whole season from the time we lost the year prior.
You guys, well, and you mentioned playing Shelby Fritzler. You guys actually ended up being teammates at Northeastern, and volleyball gave you an opportunity to really do a lot more things in your life than just win a state championship, and that has to be something you're really grateful for.
Oh, absolutely. I credit volleyball for a lot of my experiences in life. I went on to be teammates with a lot of amazing people at Northeastern, and then moved on to play my next 2 years at University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, which again builds so many lifelong friendships and family, really. And it's been an amazing experience, and these are people that are going to be in my life for forever. And it's just built such a great infrastructure essentially for my life, because I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for volleyball.
One thing that I'm really passionate about on the variety of shows that I host, including being the radio voice in Northeastern, is being able to use sports as a metaphor for life. What are some of the things that you learned maybe from the 07 Fleming Volleyball Championship team or from any of your other volleyball experiences that you wouldn't have learned if it weren't for volleyball that you now use in your everyday life?
It's, tenacity for sure. You got to stick with it. You got to work hard. You got to believe that, if you want something, you got to work hard for it, and you got to stay believing, because if you waver, then, that could certainly affect you down the road. Leaning on people, because if you can't ever do anything by yourself, you need to have that support system and trust that they're going to be there for you, just like they trust you to be there for them, and really just kind of grow from your losses and mistakes. And it's been an amazing way to grow through life and channel those lessons into the rest of life after volleyball.
Well, and what is life after volleyball? NFL players, they started in high school football at one point. There's really not a massive multi-million-dollar career in the sport of volleyball. So what has life led you to do over the last decade?
So I mentioned getting to play after high school, which has been an amazing experience, and it led me to living in Colorado Springs, which is an amazing city. And to this day, I stay in touch with all of my teammates and kind of get together, on the weekends and build little tournaments for volleyball, and, still hang out and do that. And it's living in Colorado Springs from University of Colorado has brought me to a great career with a company called USAA, and so I wouldn't have been introduced to that if it hadn't been for the path that volleyball had taken me. So I don't coach, but I still definitely get out there and play for fun with some old teammates. So it's definitely still something I enjoy.
Well, and when you look at it, I mean, you can still play, which is one of the cool things that volleyball gives to you, but you also have the opportunity to follow along where you're still in Colorado pretty regularly, I would imagine, with the success that Fleming has had since you've left Fleming, and that has to be something surreal to watch now, 11 straight years that this team's been at the state tournament at a very high level.
It is. It's so awesome, I guess, to look back and know that you were a part of building this legacy, and to watch girls that were so young when I played 10 years ago to grow into girls like Timmy and Allie Keisel, who were, on with their own careers after high school and playing at, the University of Chadron State College and other schools like that. It's such an amazing thing to know that you kind of built that legacy for girls to grow and learn from volleyball and experience that joy, because I know how much I enjoyed it and grew from that experience. So to know that others are going to be able to experience that as well, it's a pretty cool thing.
We're talking Fleming Wildcat volleyball on Championship Reflections, the Fleming Lady Wildcats 10-year anniversary of the first volleyball title in school history. Kim McDowell was working with the South Platte Sentinel at that time, and you were there for the loss in 06. I was there for the loss in 06. The win in 07 was sweet because of that loss in 06, and it was a pretty special championship for them.
Well, after losing that state championship match in 2006 to Kit Carson, I believe, it was a long 364 days for the Lady Wildcats, but they knew they had the opportunity to get back and take care of business. And boy, did they ever take care of business, because they played Flagler in the state championship match and swept, not just swept, but won 25-13, 25-16, 25-10 to finish 32-0.
Well, and I think the thing that stands out to me, Ken, is in that championship game, it wasn't necessarily a competitive match. Fleming was pretty dominant, but they'd been pushed really hard in their pool, and they got pushed really hard in their semifinal match. I believe it was Kalichi they played in the semifinals.
Too. That one went 5.
Yeah.
And actually, Kalichi won the first set 26-24, and then it went to the fifth set, and then Fleming just kind of dominated 15-6 to get into the state championship match, but Kalichi just had one heck of a team. That was probably, and I remember we were sitting out on the end of the Coliseum.
We were at the back end, yeah.
That was probably one of the best semifinal matches I'd ever seen.
Oh, no question about that.
State championship match.
And I think the thing that made that Fleming team really special was they had great senior leadership.
They had Amy Einspahr and Michelle King. just very, very good seniors, but had some great juniors.
Yeah,
and I believe a freshman by the name of Jenna Vandenbark. So it just seemed like after Fleming went to that state championship match in 2006, and of course they've been back every year. I think they've played in every state championship
just
match,
about
one or two. It just seemed like Fleming just continued to. It didn't matter who was coming up as freshmen. They were going to blend in very, very well with the seniors, and they were ready to step up and play at that level. And I always tease Derek Herbert, over the stretch, the years that Derek coached, that you're at the Coliseum so much you're going to get your mail there.
Yeah,
because it got to be a home court advantage for the Lady Wildcats playing in the Coliseum.
Yeah, it really did, because it is such a tough place to play. And I think what was really cool looking at those senior leaders is statistically they didn't really have the big dominant arms that Fleming had for many of those years through there. But to me, Amy Einspahr, I really stood out on that championship. Kind of hard, as tall as she is, but to not stand out. But she really stood out because she executed. They didn't set her often. They set the outside a lot. But Amy Einspahr made the most of every single chance she had in that tournament.
She did, and she had a very, very good supporting cast. You had the Lene Cox and Alyssa Muller and Bethany Atkin and Amanda Wilkington were returning starters the following year. So that's a pretty deep team. And the one thing when I think about Fleming, we started the South Platte Sentinel in 1988, and I went covering sports in this area the first 18 years without seeing a Fleming girls team get out of the basketball or district volleyball tournaments. And then all of a sudden in after 2006 up to the present time, basketball and volleyball are, very, very dominant teams in the state in Class 1A. So, that's a long time to go without seeing a team get out of a district tournament, and they made up for it.
Well, they made up for it, and I think it was the hard work they put in. You talked about Derek Herbert. He created an amazing culture that continues to this day in Fleming volleyball, a culture where they understand what it takes to win. And it was this bunch of juniors this season and seniors in the 2007 season that really set the bar for what is Fleming.
And, you think about your history with Fleming volleyball because you got here in 2004, and it was just a couple of years later that Fleming really started to take off. So maybe you deserve a little credit.
Maybe. They were actually my first volleyball match that I covered. They played Lone Star and lost in 5. And that was right before this bunch really came in. I believe Amy Einspahr was a freshman on that team, if my memory serves me correct. But they have become such a great program that is able to continue to succeed, and even when you think the talent level is going to drop, they don't. And I think that it's these players, that the young ones now, I mean, they're coming into high school, they were 3 and 4 when this all got started. So they've seen these kids, and I think this group that won the 2007 Fleming Volleyball State Championship is what everybody still aspires to be out in Fleming, even though they've had much more successful seasons since then.
A lot of amazing things about that program, but one thing that really also sticks out to me is getting to the state tournament every year since 2006. You realize how many things have changed in this world and in our lives since 2006, since the last time, 2005 was the last time Fleming did not get to a state volleyball tournament. That's a long time. I can safely say I've never covered a team that's gone to a state tournament that many years in a row and get to the semifinals. They get to the semifinals every year.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable. And that, you're talking about the talent level, not just in this area, but in 1A, for Fleming to do that is just totally remarkable.
The Fleming Wildcats and their state championship run that started in 2007, reliving on championship reflections the 2007 1A Volleyball State Championship with a man that had been at the helm of the program for 4 of the 5 championships, Derek Herbert. Now the head coach at Northridge High School. They played Flagler in the state championship, and it was an exciting affair in spite of the fact it was a sweep.
I have utmost respect for Pam Feigerland, and Flagler, and she's done amazing things with those kids, and she's just a high quality individual. So it's kind of a funny thing, because that year we played Flagler in our pool, and it was a really tough, intense 5 games, and then they wound up being second in our pool and won their cross to get back in the championship. So it was kind of interesting, just that whole feel, because we were, it was as a coaching staff, we were really, kind of nervous because that last game was so tough. But, the kids went out, and it was kind of funny because they went out and they played partner tag for about 20 minutes on the court right before we played, and they just loosened up. And, I know us coaches were, probably wound as tight as we could be, thinking, oh, how, tough it was. But, we made some adjustments on how Flagler hurt us, and I don't know, just they were about as calm and cool and collected as possible. And then when the game started, they just were on fire. It was just a amazing, dominant, wonderful performance, especially when we just played that team and it went 5 just a couple, just the day before. So it was kind of fun. It was just really cool experience.
That whole year, though, I mean, it was kind of, this is ours to take year, because you'd lost in 5 the previous year. And the whole year, every time I was around you guys, you were relaxed. What was the secret to your girls remaining so relaxed all season long?
There were a couple times that they weren't, that they were pretty nervous, worried about, all that could happen. But I think in the bottom of their hearts, they knew that they'd put in the time, and they were so close last year. Honestly, we were up pretty big in set 4 and just had a stretch where we missed, 4 serves out of 5, I think. And if we didn't have that, we could have won it. So I think they felt like, we put in the work, we're really close. Let's just go get it. But no, there were some stressful moments, like the semifinal against Cleachy was unbelievably stressful. And we played Cleachy, I think 5 times that year, 4 times, I don't know, but each time got tougher and tougher, and that semifinal was tough. So, they had to battle quite a bit, and but we overcame, and it was kind of, that championship was about as calm and just confident as I've saw them all year. So that was kind of fun.
Going in, obviously, the girls had put the work in. Talk about that work, because this was the start of what has been now more than a decade of Fleming volleyball dominance at the 1A level. Talk about what that work was for many of these girls, because it didn't just start when you guys lost to Kit Carson. It had been going on for a long time.
The core of that group fell in love with volleyball at a young age. So I had them in junior high, and they in junior high were always begging to do more. They always wanted to go to extra tournaments. So we wound up taking them, as junior high kids, wound up taking them to extra summer tournaments and doing things. And, they played all that they could in the area, all the league and everything. So they were always wanting to do extra. And then a bunch of them wound up doing some club, and not only did they work hard in practice, but they always were looking for other opportunities to play. And we wound up, when I first got there, trying to get kids to do summer stuff, that outside of getting a few of them to sign up for league, they didn't want to, but those kids were like, well, can we do 10 tournaments a summer and stuff? We never did that. We tried to find a balance with basketball and stuff, but, I think they would have done as many tournaments and as many games in the summers as we could have, just because they really like the sport. So that kind of mentality of let's go play. And as we started playing, we wound up playing tougher and tougher teams. So like that crew, the summer before, they played a bunch of 5A tournaments, and they just kind of always kept wanting to add and raise the bar. And I think it was a little bit of the love of the game, but I also felt like they just had a great work ethic, great attitude, and that really started how we handle things in practice and some things. So it was a unique, fun crew to kind of watch go through it. And I started with them when they were 6th grade in junior high. So to watch them just progress was a lot of fun. So
when you are building a program like what you guys were doing out at Fleming, you obviously have dreams that it could turn into something. But did you even imagine that, 12 years or whatever it is of virtual dominance for Fleming volleyball was attainable when you started the process?
No. I was just praying that I could get that group of kids, because they work so hard to state. I had no clue that we could even win state at first, and then all of a sudden that became within grasp, and they worked for it. And, I would have never in a million years thought, when we were first starting, that first year of the high school, the junior high had a good year, but the high school, it was a struggle. They only won 2 games, and actually just beat the same team twice. So, it was to even think that we could have the kind of program and dominance we wound up with was not even in the ballpark. It was hoping we could get to a winning season, and then hoping we could get to state, and then hoping we could win it, and then it just snowballed from there. So it was definitely kind of a cool experience to be a part of.
Cool experience to be a part of, and still now to watch, even though you're no longer the head coach at Fleming. It's got to be cool to continue to see Fleming have success to this day.
It is wonderful. It is amazing how hard the kids still work, and Doug and Connie have done a fabulous job. I think they do some of the same things we used to do, but they've definitely put their stamp on how to do things, and have just done an amazing job with that program. So, when you leave a program, that's what you hope for. You hope that, it's in a better place than when you started, and it has the ability to sustain. And, they've been able to sustain, and, there's not a lot of programs that have won 6 state championships in volleyball. And so, when they won their 6th last year, that's quite the honor. And, we know that this year's really tough, in terms of some of the schools that are out there. But, hopefully they can get a 7th this year. That'd be a lot of fun. I got to watch them scrimmage right before the season, and they were up playing a bunch of really good teams like University and Berthoud and some of those schools up there. And they look good. They've done a good job with them. So it's definitely, a lot of pride, and a lot of heart goes out to those kids, because they sure work hard. They're a good group.
It's what's been so much fun about covering the Fleming Wildcats from 2006, when they first lost the state championship to Kit Carson, all the way through now their 5th state championship win. The Wildcats have been a mainstay at the Denver Coliseum, and they'll be a mainstay on Championship Reflections, because they've won a lot of titles over the last decade plus.